Good evening, everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started. This is the Anti-Hate Task Force meeting, and we have a full meeting this evening. Thank you all for joining us. And we also will have MCPS joining us. I see that they are in the room. Just going to quickly go over the agenda and then go ahead and start the meeting. So welcome. I am Selena Mendy Singleton. I am with the County Council. I am the Racial Equity Manager for the Council. And Bertha.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Berta Cersosimo, Multicultural Communications and Outreach Manager for the County Council. Glad to see everyone here.
So I'm going to briefly go over the agenda. We just did the welcome. We're going to have a few administrative and other updates. Then we're going to have the AAPI cohort report out from their meeting that they had on July 18th for just a couple of minutes. We're going to have an overview of hate and bias incidents and the action plan to combat hate and bias at schools from MCPS, and Q&A after that. We're going to break out into your different cohort groups, and we are hoping that you all have already identified your chair, have had a minute or two to go over again the plan, the Anti-Hate Task Force requirements, and that you come back to us after about 20 minutes and report out from your breakout groups for about 1 or 2 minutes. So who is your chair, and hopefully when is your next meeting, because other people I think would like to attend. And then we're going to close for the last couple of minutes. So let me just start with, and again, this is Selena Singleton from the County Council. For those of you who have just joined, I'm the Racial Equity Manager here. We have a few reminders. You will remember that we talked about for all the boards, committees, and commissions at the council, everyone needs to take ethics training, parliamentary procedure, and the Maryland Open Meetings Act. And thanks to those of you who have already sent us that information. That's helpful that you've taken it. The cohort meetings, we need that information because we're the ones who have to set those up for you and place them on the website, on the council website. The meetings, the agenda, and I think we sent around just a basic agenda, and we will put the videos up of all of your meetings so that we're not taking minutes. And then the cohort chairs, which I just said, and then the staff assignments. And so, of course, I think as all of you know, Bertha and I are available to all of you at any time, almost. But we've also divided up the cohorts, there are 6, into 3 and 3. So if you have specific questions or needs, you can, like I said, reach out to any of us. But I will be working specifically with the African American cohort, the LGBTQ plus cohort, and the AAPI cohort. And Bertha will be working with the Jewish cohort, the Hispanic Latino cohort, and the Muslim cohort. So those are the basic administrative tasks that we just wanted to share. And now we're going to turn it over to the AAPI cohort for a quick report out from their last meeting. And I'm not really sure who is going to.
That'll be me. I'll jump in.
All right, thanks.
So our group, which includes Jeff, Nazanin, Hoan, Ariani, and myself, we met and learned a little bit more about each other. And we identified 3 areas of focus for our work. The first being youth in schools, the second, the larger AAPI community, and then 3, really focusing on the cross-solidarity and community aspect of how we can work across groups. From that meeting, we had a lot of homework, researching and providing recommendations around each of those focus areas on a fun Jamboard that Ariani set up. And we sorted those ideas between 3 strategies. There was reactive, which was response and recovery after a hate crime, interventionist, to interrupt an imminent hate crime, and then preventative, which, trying to address conditions to prevent hate crimes from happening. And so next steps include identifying roles that you discussed and discussing the 64 Post-it notes that we have gathered so far and seeing where we can hone those down to.
Okay, thank you for that. I forgot to mention that this is being live streamed. And as I indicated before, we are recording all of these meetings. So just so that you all know that. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Monteleon, who I thought I saw, but I don't see anymore, but you must be there somewhere. Oh, I see you. Yeah, okay, just not on my screen. Okay. And he is the Associate Superintendent for the Office of School Support and Wellbeing. So at MCPS. So MCPS is going to give a presentation based on the questions that most of you sent in. And then you'll be able to do a little more Q&A. And just remember, if there aren't questions that have been answered, that you can always include those in your report, as recommendations. So it doesn't end here, but I'm going to turn it over to Damon.
Well, thank you very much, Selena. So good evening, everybody. My name is Damon Monteleone. I'm one of 4 associate superintendents in the Office of School Support and Wellbeing. My 3 colleagues are over all of the schools, and so they supervise the directors and the school supervisors in the schools. I'm responsible for counseling services, our social worker program, our restorative approaches program, international enrollment and admissions, athletics, our community engagement office, student leadership, and many others, programs that cut across all of the schools. Prior to being associate superintendent, I was principal of Richmond Montgomery High School for 7 years. I've been a teacher inside the district since the late 90s, except for 4 years that I spent teaching internationally in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. I'm also a father of a recent MCPS grad, class 23, and I have a rising 10th grader at Rockville High School, and I live right here in Rockville, so very much a member of the community as well. At your last meeting, I was able to attend and sat at the exterior, right, the little kids table, if you will. And Stephanie Sharon, our Chief of Strategic Operations, was also there virtually. She is on leave this week, as many of our leaders and central office staff are here at MCPS. And so we hope to have some of our other colleagues, such as Greg Edmondson, who's the Director of Compliance and Student Welfare, who oversees all of our reporting mechanisms, be here with us. But they're on vacation, most of them. And so you've got myself. I'm also lucky to have an incredible colleague of mine, John Lanzman, the Executive Director of Strategic Operations. So I would like, John, if you could just introduce yourself and maybe speak a little bit briefly about the work that you've done to lead the anti-racist audit, and then I'll continue.
Sure. Hi, everyone. John Lanzman. I am the Executive Director in the Office of Strategic Initiatives. I've spent most of my career in MCPS in the Equity Initiatives Unit, working with many of you over the years. I see a lot of good friends and colleagues in the audience. And I also, as Damon referenced, I helped lead the anti-racist audit over the last couple of years, where we had about 130,000 participants in the audit, and we have an action plan that we're going to share with you a little bit later today. I'm also, like Damon, a parent of MCPS students. My son just graduated from Einstein High School just a month ago, and my daughter graduated from Blair High School. I live in Silver Spring. It's great to be here with everybody.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate it. So again, John and I are going to do our best to answer all the questions that we get or what we see in the chat. If there are questions or other things that we're not able to answer, we promise you we will be able to get those responses to you from staff throughout the district, right? So I think as I reflect upon the meeting that we had last time, I think we all recognize, right, that our society is experiencing a great deal of outward hate and intolerance. And as diverse and as progressive as our county is and as our school system is, we are not immune to what is happening across the country, right? And within our society. And, our schools, we know, are a reflection of society. And so we stand by in solidarity with you, community members, along with our parents, our county leaders, to instill the values and the empathy and the tolerance and the kindness that we all want to see in our students, because hate is something that is learned. And it's not something that we teach. In fact, we do everything we can to counter hate in our schools. And so, all together now, as is Dr. McKnight's slogan, and we must do this together. It was hard to hear your stories at the last meeting. I mean that sincerely. As a leader in the district, as a father, as somebody who lives here, it's always very emotional. And I know that I speak for Dr. McKnight and John and others and Stephanie Sharon when I say that. We've done a lot of work over the last year to put a lot of enhanced structures and processes and professional learning in place, to have accountability at the school level through our school improvement plans. And I'm going to share some of those structures with you this evening. I want you to know where we are, but also fully acknowledge where we need to go. And we are working very hard with our external partners, many of whom work through HHS and other community partnerships to do this tough work in our schools. And we are open to feedback, and we understand that we are essentially a county that is as diverse, if not more diverse, than any place in the United States of America, right? So this is really, really important to us. I also want to say that we are in development of a new district level bullying and harassment and hate bias plan that will be shared once it goes through the board process in August with the larger community. So much of what you're going to see tonight is based upon the questions that you have given us and some really tried and true standard structures and processes, really the basics, kind of 101 that we want to share with you tonight and make sure the community is aware of. You all sent us a series of questions through the county council. We have an FAQ that we're going to drop in the chat when we're done with the presentation that I'm about to lead. And I think much of hopefully the questions that you asked should be answered in there, right? So with that, John, if we could start the slides and let's get going. Thank you. We thought it really would be important, right? Well, John and I stand before you today to remind folks that this past spring, Dr. McKnight spoke to the community and had a press conference at Rockville High School to take the lead in addressing this with our school leaders. And so we want to show you just a very brief clip. It's about 3 or 4 minutes. And remember, this is an hour-long presentation, but I think it kind of speaks to where we are right now. So John, would you play that clip?
Because the recent actions of a few have shaken us. We've woken up to headlines about heartbreaking incidents in our schools and our community. Students spewing bigoted language, degrading the color of their peers' skin, ethnic heritage, gender identity, or faith, drawing symbols of hate that leave their peers shocked, startled, and hurting, and posting profane, homophobic, and outright mean, disrespectful, and ignorant content on social media. Let me be clear. These unacceptable actions have no place in MCPS. They must be called out and not allowed. We're called together today because the unfortunate reality is that these sorts of actions have become more and more common. This year alone, our schools are home to over 1 incident a day on average, a rate that triples what we have seen in the past years and even before COVID-19. So, my friends, we're in 2023, and the reality is that race matters. Religion matters. Disability matters. Gender identity and sexual orientation matter. And they matter at a time when forces of hate and bias continue to tear us apart and pull at the very fabric of our community. At any particular moment, headlines and newscasts detailing the killing of a Black man, the assault of an Asian American, the crude mocking of an individual with a disability, or the defamation of property with messages promoting the exclusion of Jews can bring a particular form of hate to the forefront of our national discourse. Because events bring with them a real emotional salience. Yet, concentrating at any given point on a particular form of hate does not eliminate the unjust presence of its forms. And let me say that one more time. Concentrating at any given point on a particular form of hate does not eliminate the unjust presence of its other forms.
Thank you, John. Again, our superintendent coming forward this past spring to really make some statements and some commitments. And we're going to speak to some of those commitments. And they're also in the FAQ that we're going to share in just a moment. So if you go on to the next slide, please, John. So as John referenced, and then as hopefully most folks on this call know, the district initiated a system-wide audit to look at all of our structures, our processes, and our systems to look at the levels of racism, whether they're institutionalized racism, structural racism, whatever it may be. And so there is a link to the full report in that document that includes all the findings. Some of the key findings that we really want to highlight say such things as that MCPS's policies and structures and best practices, we need to modify some of these things, right? The implementation of the policies and the application of the best practices of our best practices differ from school to school. We have great variability in the 14th largest school district in the country with 211 schools and over 163,000 students. We are currently working to create that level of consistency so that all of our students have an optimal experience. The audit goes on to say that the successful planning and implementation of a district-wide racial equity vision requires coherence, accountability, equity-centered capacity building, data collection, and relational trust. So these are the pillars that have been driving this work. And while the audit findings were released in October, we immediately got to work engaging with our partners, our community leaders, and our staff. You go on to the next slide. As a result of that collaboration, a comprehensive action plan was delivered that addresses both system level and school level actions. Each step has key deliverables and dates. All of this is on our website if you search for the anti-racist audit in the search field. For now, what I'm going to speak to is about the hate bias part of our work and the numbers of the hate bias incidents at MCPS. And we recognize that many of those numbers are underreported for a variety of reasons. Many of them due to perhaps a lack of cultural proficiency or the need to be able to get information and resources and links and information to parents in the community. If you go on the next slide, please. So first of all, looking at what is a definition of hate bias. And so MCPS's guiding definition of hate bias is founded on the principles of our Board of Education Policy, ACA, non-discrimination, equity, and cultural proficiency. And so hate bias incidents are incidents involving discrimination based on personal characteristics that include race, ethnicity, color, ancestry, national origin, religion, immigration status, sex, gender, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, family or parental status, marital status, age, physical or mental disability, poverty and socioeconomic status, language, or other legally or constitutionally protected attributes or affiliations. Next slide, please. And so what we know is that everybody is harmed by hate bias. Everybody. Every time an incident occurs, it is not just the victim or the recipient, it is also the community. It is the school. And in fact, it is also the perpetrator. Because the perpetrator has relationships that are impaired, possibly from being ostracized. They can become more comfortable with bullying behavior the longer that they engage in it. And there's increasingly more intent in their actions with no concern about the impact they have to others if it is not addressed. In short, the more that perpetrators engage in this behavior, the more their reality is skewed. And I do want to say that part of our response to perpetrators, yes, disciplinary in nature. Yes, we have key tenets in the code of conduct, but we also believe in teaching and restoration for all that are involved in incidents. Next slide, please. So there was a request to see some data. And so we're looking specifically, and we'll share more data in the FAQ, but looking at what groups have experienced hate bias incidents in MCPS, and based on what reasons. So you can see that we had really, if you're looking at February and March, that spike. So we had this huge spike in winter. And I think if you recall the headlines that we were seeing around swastikas, the use of the N-word, and other things of that nature, we really were troubled and doubled down on our efforts to that point. So again, we'll go into some more data in the FAQ, but wanted to share some of this. And what you can see here is literally, as Dr. McKnight referenced, over one incident per day. Go to the next slide, John. So what happens? Some of the questions that we heard at the last meeting and that we saw in the FAQ were really basics. What does MCPS do when an incident of hate bias occurs in their schools? What are the expectations at the school level? What are the processes that are in place? So we'll address some of those now. John, could you go to the next slide? So first and foremost, I want to make everybody aware that we have an entire unit dedicated solely to issues such as this that impact students. The Office of Student Welfare and Compliance, which is led by our director, Greg Edmondson. And as you can see on the slide here, this is a resource, and this is a hub for consistency and coherence in responding to the incidents such as bullying, sexual harassment, abuse and neglect, hate bias, hazing, student gender identity issues. We are going to share after this slide presentation a document with a bunch of links to our web pages, to forms, to websites where you can peruse all of this information. We thought it would be worthy for you to have it on hand. Next slide, please. So as the state's attorney spoke about at the last meeting, right, we had some questions about hate crimes and hate incidents. And so there really is a great difference here, right? So a hate bias incident is, some examples of them are there: name calling, degrading language, some sort of racist, derogatory drawing or image, the use of social media to downgrade an individual. These are incidents, right, that are motivated by bias based on one person's characteristic or identity. A hate crime, first and foremost, it must be a crime. MCPS does not define what is a hate crime. That is defined through Maryland law and federal law. And it is first and foremost a crime, and then the authorities must prove that it's a crime motivated based on hate or bias. And so what MCPS does when we have any incident that is reported to us, we do not make the call as to whether or not it is an incident or a crime. We report all incidents to our partners in Montgomery County Police and our other police partners throughout the county, such as Rockville City, so on and so forth, Gaithersburg, and they make the determination. So they'll make the determination if it is a crime or an incident. I should note, if it is a crime, or if it's determined that it possibly could be a crime and the investigation needs to occur, that investigation is done by the police. MCPS stands down to not duplicate investigatory efforts. And the police will make that ultimate determination as to whether it is a crime or an incident. Next slide, please. So how do folks report incidents of hate bias? They're a form 226-5. And so these forms are readily available, again, on our website. We've shared them with the community in the past. We will continue to do so. Part of our public outreach is absolutely something that we know we have to get better at. We have heard the feedback from the community on that. But all schools are trained through their mandatory annual compliance modules on bullying and hate bias and how they must respond. And additionally, I should note, as part of our enhancements this year, all administrators, all school-based administrators on August 16th are coming in person for a half-day professional development session on safety and security investigations, hate bias, bullying, everything that falls under this umbrella. And that will be the first in a series of mandatory in-person professional learning opportunities that we have for administrators, that we provide for psychologists, social workers, our counselors, teachers, teacher leaders, and support staff, bus drivers, people throughout the district. This will be going on throughout the year. I guess, yeah, we'll put the PDF in the chat afterwards. And so the next slide, please, if you go to the next slide, John. So we developed this process map, really both for the public, but also for our schools. So I'll kind of walk you through this at a very high level, but this is a non-negotiable. This is how every incident of hate bias must be pursued at the school level with support from central office. So you can see that the allegation is made, right? That form must be submitted. That is a state regulation. It is submitted to the principal or his or her designee. All these incidents, as I shared, are reported to Montgomery County Police for their determination as to whether or not it is possibly a crime. All of these incidents are also reported to the Office of School Support and Wellbeing. We generate a serious incident number and track these all year long. And then we broadcast this internally to make all of our district leadership and appropriate staff aware of the incident. The school administration then conducts the investigation. If MCPD is not leading it because it potentially could be a crime, the victim will receive support measures and a safety plan. We'll speak a little bit about that when we get to our FAQ. Essentially, we do not want the student who is a victim to have their education interrupted for fear of ongoing harassment, intimidation, bullying, or other incidents of hate that they may be available to. So we want to make sure that their learning environment in school is very safe, and there's this detailed plan and way to do that. A behavior threat assessment team is assembled to assess the risk. So this is if the perpetrator or the offense is such that it may pose a risk to an individual or the school community. And so a team comes together to make that assessment. And then if it is determined that it is a risk, there are other steps that are taken, but I will not go into those at this point. A community letter is developed because we do not want to hide these incidents. We want to be transparent at the school level. And then we share the community letter with the community, and we try to get this out the same day. We do collaborate with our director of communications and our central office staff and our executive leadership. Disciplinary action is taken in alignment with the student code of conduct. So I'll speak to some restorative approaches soon, but I really want to make clear that a restorative approach does not preclude traditional disciplinary responses, and it certainly does not replace a traditional disciplinary response. We have a mandatory re-entry meeting with the parent or guardian of the student who is the alleged perpetrator, right? To make sure that clear expectations for their behavior and their conduct are followed once they re-enter the school. And then we begin the response. We begin the healing process. This is where we work with the equity unit, outside partners, organizations. I could name them, but I'm sure I would forget a few. Many of those organizations are represented on this call, where we really do begin the healing process with students. And then, of course, we have to update our records in that form when we close out cases or make sure that we have all of our documentation associated with the incident. We understand that communicating this process is still a work in progress, and we have been doing so and continue to do so and have plans to do so even more thoroughly as the school year unfolds. Go to the next slide, please, John. So as I've referenced, reporting the incident, working with our partners, issuing traditional school discipline is one part of the process. The other process, MCPS believes in a restorative approach to all school incidents, because research shows when you just suspend students, when you kick students to the curb, if you take somebody who has perpetrated an incident and suspend them for 5 days or 10 days they're not learning from this incident. They feel excluded, more excluded perhaps from the community than they had before. And we are dealing with children, and we are dealing with young adults, and we are a teaching and learning institution. So we believe in providing a space to create the conditions for people to learn from their mistakes and to restore the community, so we can bring folks back into our schools and into our cultures, and to have them feel whole and be part of the community, so they do not continue to perpetrate these incidents. Next slide, please. And so what are some of the restorative responses to incidents of hate bias? So first and foremost, one of the upgrades that we've made for this school year is getting written parental consent for students to engage in a restorative approach. We want to make sure that we communicate with parents and avoid forcing students to participate in a conversation with a person that has caused them harm if they wish not to. We also have the harm doer, right, or the alleged perpetrator, the perpetrator, complete an RJ restorative justice reflection form, and allows the harm student an opportunity, right, to reflect on the incidents and also, express their needs. We facilitate restorative conversations, right, as warranted, with those who were the perpetrators, those who were the victims, and other folks that were involved, in the situation. We can facilitate restorative circles. We bring in our equity specialists. We work with outside agencies. We facilitate town halls to address cultural or larger school climate issues that may be at play. We also can require the person who commits the harm to engage in the culture of respect modules, to review our learning for justice modules and websites, and to really re-educate. But ultimately, we want the students to understand what they have done, how it has harmed others, and what their role is or was in it, so they don't do it again. Okay, and again, just highlighting that all of these responses do not preclude and certainly don't replace a traditional disciplinary response. John, I think that's it. So at this time, John, if you could drop the FAQ in the chat, do you mind?
Nope. And Damon, there's a couple questions in the chat too.
I guess we'll capture these and then we'll try to run through the FAQ. But hopefully we'll cover some more information. There's a question here from Nora. What is the time frame from the time the incident form is filled to when a school staff member contacts the family or student? I mean, it should be certainly within that day. But as soon as time permits, right? So we want to let a parent know right away that their student or a staff member has reported this based on credible information that we have, and we are required to fill out that form. So it should be within certainly that day, Nora, if not within hours. Second question from May: is there any data collected to see if people repeat offenses, how often offenses outline, how effective? Yeah. So we do have. So I don't have handy the data about repeat offenses specifically for hate bias at my disposal right now. We looked into this for restorative justice and restorative approaches in general, and what we found was that when a perpetrator engages in a restorative process, I think it was 60 something, I want to say 65% or 70% of the time, that student does not repeat that behavior. All right. So I think it was set close to 70% of the time that student does not repeat that behavior. Looks like John put the FAQ in the chat. So John, could you share that on the screen?
Sure.
And folks, I know I've been talking a lot, right? And I want to make sure that I don't continue to speak ad nauseum here. So I'm not going to go through the entire document with you, right? And it has information. We wanted to make this available to you. We are happy, I mean this sincerely, happy to engage with you and the council in this process. We're honored to be a partners in this work. It truly is a partnership. And so I do want to highlight one piece that I think is significant that was asked that was not necessarily in the presentation. And I think it's on page 3, John. It's question 4. Yeah, this section right here. Exactly. So what happens when a student who's a victim, right, or target of these incidents, what support is given to that student, right? Because this is traumatic. And some of our most vulnerable students are the students that are victims of these incidents. So there are key supportive measures that are put in place, right? Increasing adult presence near the student, informing staff to increase vigilance, additional security staff, a change of seats, classes, or assigned school bus, providing escorts or buddies, flash passes. And what I can say, again, as a former principal who has done this work at the school level, is we can do a variety of things. We create a safety plan for the student. If the student has the same class with the perpetrator, our first move is to separate those students, make sure they both have access to their educational outcomes and opportunities, but to ensure that the victim is not forced to be in a space with the student. We also do what I'll refer to as kind of a school peace order, if you will, for lack of a better phrase, where we have contracts. That's part of that re-entry plan with the perpetrator, where we make it very clear that you cannot look at this person, you cannot come within a defined space of this person, you are not to reach out to them by cell, by text, by social media, all of the ways. We literally try to separate them. And if we have a violation of that safety plan by the perpetrator, then we escalate to further steps and bring back in the parents for enhanced disciplinary measures if need be. But that's all part of the re-entry process for the perpetrator themselves. So I kind of wanted to summarize some of those supportive measures. If you could scroll down a little bit more to the restorative supports, again, establishing safe spaces, letting the student know designated areas, right? How we can give that student support, teaming that student up with a peer, with a peer support through counseling, ensuring that student has direct access, a flash pass. Anytime they need to leave a class, they don't have to ask permission. We let the teachers know this student has permission at any time to go see their counselor and receive support. So it's not awkward. The teacher knows. We communicate in that advance. We are always confidential with staff on the why behind that. And all the teachers need to know is flash pass, the student goes. We have a litany of additional services in schools. We have our English language learner, therapeutic counselors. We have social workers in every high school. We have expanded those services to middle schools and elementary schools. We have contracts with JESSA and with Thrive to provide contractual psychological services. We have psychologists. And so we have all these therapeutic services. We provide mentoring, right? We provide education and training, really for anybody that was involved to restore. If you go a little bit further down to the next page.
Sure, and there's also more questions in the chat.
Okay, I'll just get through this piece here. And then I guess we can, I know I'm over time, so we can get to some of the questions. Like I said earlier, we may need to engage the school community, right? This may be something, it may be the tip of the iceberg, right? It may be something that is pervasive or is bubbling within the climate or the culture of the school. And this may be an incident, or if we see a series of incidents at a school, we will come together with the team, the directors of who supervise the principals, the other associate superintendents, and we will plug in with school leadership and then figure out what type of community restoration, a community meeting, professional development for staff, a meeting with students, whatever it may be, to really engage in larger work. And then, of course, I've already spoken to some of the restorative approaches that we use. So I really wanted to highlight those pieces there. And then you do have a litany of other information included, I should say, in this FAQ. And I just want to end by reminding folks that this is a snapshot of what we do. And so there is an enhanced, real district-wide approach to all of this to get to the root of the issues and some of the things that our anti-racist audit uncovered about how we operate as a district. That work is ongoing. Once it's shared with the board in August, we'll come forward in more detail with the entire community. Let me see if I can address some of these questions. So there's something from Tiffany. When does intent come into play when determining the consequence, i.e. arson, intentionally destroy property is very different, causing harm without understanding the full consequence. Intent matters, disability, cognitive ability. Code of conduct is very exacting in nature and doesn't seem to allow consideration. So this is part, so intent, this is part of the investigation, right? And this is done on an individual student by student basis. And so when we investigate incidents, normally it's an assistant principal or a principal at the elementary level who leads that, but we partner also with our counselors, right? Or somebody in the building who's that trusted adult for the student. And when we have good relationships with our students, even those who do things we don't want them to do, we tend to get the truth. But we have to do this on a student by student or a case by case basis. And it certainly does. Intent, remorse, how a student engages in the investigatory process are all pieces of this puzzle. There's a question here. I hope that, is it Ariani, Ms. Ong? I hope I'm saying that properly. Does the plan cover incidents that occur after school hours, but on social? So it depends, right? There are guidelines under the state of Maryland, right? If something happens over the weekend, if something happens on social media that is not on an MCPS account, it may be under the school's purview, it may not. To be the general rule of thumb that guides school administrators is this. If an incident occurs, so let's say, for example, I'll separate this example from hate bias. There's a high school party at somebody's house on a Saturday. A fight happens at the house, not the school's business. We do not go and investigate what happened at that party and issue consequences. Now, if the effects of that fight bleed into the schoolhouse, if there is social media activity about that, if students continue to be harassed or bullied as a result of that fight, then that becomes the purview of the school. There is a distinction between what happens in the community and what happens in a schoolhouse. And so generally, if it impacts the school learning environment, then it becomes the school's purview. There's another question here from Nora. What is the threshold for holding town halls in schools that have repeat incidents? There are schools in MCPS where hate bias incidents have been problematic for decades. What system work is being done in those communities and how are staff, students, and parents held accountable? So again, Nora, this is on a school by school basis and an incident by incident basis. And so I wouldn't say that there's not like a continuum or a numeric threshold per se. But when we see increased repeated incidents or activity in a school, we huddle with all of our professionals here and with our school staff to plug into those schools. In terms of staff and students, we are tightening the accountability structures for our staff and our school leadership through our school improvement planning process, which all schools are now required to have a well-being goal and data to monitor that goal, similar to how we've always done for academics, math, and literacy. In terms of parents, this is a moving target. We need to include parents. We need parents, right? We need parents, and we need parents to work with us to really combat this hate in our building. There's another question here. Thank you. I got a couple minutes left. I'm getting the vaudevillian cane. What additional number of MCPF staff is ideal to fully staff this plan? Well, in all honesty, Ariani, I would love to have more staff, but we have the people in place. This larger plan is really about working with our current staff and within structures and processes that are in place that might need to be changed, might need to be enhanced. We need to change our language on our website. We need to make sure that all of our forms are translated in all 7 languages, which they are for the bullying and the hate bias at this point. We are moving in a direction that is not necessarily predicated off the need to staff. In other words, I don't want to sit here and say we're going to staff our way out of this, right? We're going to work and change our practice to change the conditions in our school to get our way out of this. Again, I know the questions could keep coming. So I'm gonna try to answer the last 3, And then I would ask if there are other questions that come in that the council staff collect them and
Yeah.
get them to us. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll answer the last three that are in here. What kind of training is done for school leaders and staff designated who conduct the? So I spoke to that a little bit earlier. There is every single staff member in MCPS, whether you are driving a bus, if you are teaching kindergarten, whatever you are doing in our school system, you are required to take your reporting and compliance training every year. And we follow that up person by person, data point by data point. This year, and this is part of this enhanced plan I'm talking about, we are extending that learning to mandatory in-person sessions beginning on August 16th with all school-based administrators. We will then repeat that and modify it based on role and hit all of our school-based roles over the course of next year. So what are MCPS primary expectations from the anti-racist task force? So I would say this, we really would love to partner with you all in thinking how the community, what can we do in the community, right? So that when our students enter our schoolhouses, they're not bringing some of this hate with them. We will continue to fight hate in our schools through a variety of means. We also work with the council's smaller task force on this. We'll continue to work with them. I understand that from the last meeting that somebody asked the question, could we make suggestions for MCPS? I would defer those questions to the council staff. My understanding is the core purpose of this task force is to make, and again, if I'm wrong, staff, tell me, but is to make legislative and potentially budget recommendations to the county council for the county, right? If those include MCPS, we would love to partner with you, and we would love to continue to be a joint force in stymieing what we're seeing here. Would MCPS get more funding to hire more social workers, school counselors? So we have brought on, over the last year, we have hired 40 social workers and have them permanently in our high schools. We have deployed them to our middle schools, and we have them available to our elementary schools on a case-by-case basis. So we are increasing all of our mental health professionals throughout our schools. I think that's the last question that I'm going to take, because I see them still coming in a little bit here, and I want to be mindful of time. Selena, does that work for you?
Yes, thank you, Damon. Really appreciate that, and the presentation, and yours and John's taking time to answer questions. We will, as indicated by Bertha, collect the rest of the questions and take them to the council and share them with you as well, so that you can answer those and we can share them with the task force. So we are now going to go into our breakout groups. I also wanted to share that, as you also see in the chat, there are some ex officio members here. Director Stowe from the Office of Human Rights, Kate Chance is here from the County Executive's Office, and Dr. Campbell from MCPS. We also have a number of staff members in the audience. Hugo from Councilmember Giwando's office, Carmen Jenkins from Central Staff. I saw Lisa Mandel-Trupp in the audience from Marilyn Balcom's office. And of course, we have Valeria Carranza from the Council President's office. So those are the folks who are in the audience. We're going to move into our cohort groups, and we have a bunch of folks from the communications group helping us. So we really appreciate that. Equin, Sky, Jordan, and Genevieve. And I and Bertha will also be in a couple of those groups.
Given your expertise at this, I mean, you chair the Human Rights Commission's hate committee. And so I think automatically we need to defer to you.
No, sir, I think we have to be democratic about it. And by the way, it's a committee against hate violence. So I work with the Office of Human Rights and the Human Rights Commission. So there are three of us and three parties to the place. I think what would be helpful if we, how long do we have, Jordan?
Yeah, so you guys just about to mention that everybody has 20 minutes starting
So-
now to have a stop clock
Oh,
going. Yes.
Okay.
All right, so we have 20 minutes, so we should probably go round robin and introduce ourselves so we know each other again. And then I would recommend us talking about next steps. We need to get on calendar some ideas. Hi, Director Stowe, how are you?
Well, how are y'all?
Excellent. This is Director
Good.
Stowe, who leads the Office of Human Rights and also he is our liaison for Montgomery County for the Committee Against Hate Violence and Office, for the Human Rights Commission. So he came and went. All right, so number one would be introductions. Number two would be dates. And then 3 action items, other action items we want to have. So hopefully folks have their calendar out. I know I saw some email traffic about even just having a meet and greet, which would be helpful. I think if you want to do that another time, that's one of the dates we can talk about. So I'll start on Lisa. I have 3 kids and MCPS, 2 just graduated actually, so I have 1. And I chair the Committee Against Hate Violence, and our job is to do what we're doing here today. But we basically report out to the to Director Stowe and the committee, but we also will work with other leaders throughout the state to address issues of hate violence. And that's it. Ron.
Yes,
Who are
thank you,
you?
Lisa. Ron Wright, and really happy to be here to be a part of this group, which I think is going to be very dynamic. Native Washingtonian. I've been in the county about 27 years. Officially, October of this year will be 27 years. And old country lawyer. I've served on several county commissions and committees. I'm now serving with the Office of Human Rights, of Friends of the Office of Human Rights Commission. So we support a lot of the great work that the Jim Stowe's office does. I'm also on the board of SURGE, which is the Coalition for Equitable Representation in Government. I serve with the Interfaith Works, Unhoused and Impoverished Community Services, and also am vice chair of our local board of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. So thank you. I'm really honored to be a part of this, and hopefully I can add my 2 cents that will make a difference to what we're seeing, all this madness we're seeing in our schools, our churches, and our greater community.
Thank you, Ron. Jacqueline, do you want to go next, or Tiffany?
I can go. I apologize for my picture. My camera won't even show my face. So it's a new laptop I have, so I have to work out the details on it. But anyway, Jacqueline Denard, I'm with the Community Baptist Church, where I serve as the director of the Community Engagement Ministry.
Can you speak up, Jacqueline? I can hardly hear you. I'm not sure if it's just me.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
okay.
a little muffled. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Again, I'm a member of the People's Community Baptist Church. How did that sound? That's good.
Great. Sounds good.
And I serve as director of the Community Engagement Ministry there. And I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta, and I'm a member of the Potomac Valley section of NCNW. And I've served in many capacities around the county on different things. I've served on the community, Montgomery County Community, and I think that's the engagement ministry, not ministry, but board there. So I was on that board for Montgomery County. And I've done a lot of outreach in the community, and I'm happy to hear that we do now have a anti-hate task force here. I was surprised to hear about some things that had happened and around the county, because I didn't know about until I was talking to some people. And I heard that there have been quite a few incidents going on in the schools. And also that it happens, most of the incidents are happening in the schools. So I was surprised about that. But then again, I know how young people can be. They just reacting or acting out what they hear other people do or what they see on TV and movies and what have you. So I think we need to start there to tame it and to be able to teach that it's not a good thing to do to other people who are different from you. So I look forward to being on this committee and to be able to assist wherever I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Tiffany.
Good evening. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
Okay, I'm in a car as a passenger, so please forgive me. My name is Tiffany Kelly. I landed in Montgomery County with a splash approximately 4.5 years ago from Florida. I have will be ninth grader this year within MCPS. We started in Chevy Chase and we are now in Gaithersburg. I am a thought leader, a trusted authority on the subjects of economic equity and anti-poverty. I work with most of the grassroots organizations in this area to include CASA. I'm a part of the MORE network, Montgomery County Racial Equity Network. I do work with Jews United for Justice. And as I stated, that has led to me being consulted on many things that deal with equity and equity-related issues. I'm a staunch advocate within the community, within our schools. You know, if you work with anyone that deals with people that are marginalized, disenfranchised, my name will probably come up. And I am a person that challenges the status quo, not just in what we're doing, but how we're doing it, how we are addressing it, because largely much of this work that we do has not changed since I was a child. And if it's growing, that's an indicator that something needs to be different. So I try to be that person to look at things critically, not to say we throw everything out, but to be sure that we are doing this work as it relates to the era that we live in.
Thank you. Carmen?
Hi there. I am a legislative service coordinator in the Office of the County Council, supporting Selena and a few others. So I'm just here helping Selena and Berta out as needed.
Perfect. Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you.
Director So, do you want to give a few words of introduction?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Jim Stowe, and I am a going on 15 years here in Montgomery County. Moved here from the Midwest, but actually from North Carolina, and so very familiar with some of these issues and upfront personal, as they say. And so I'm looking forward to this discussion, as I indicated at our initial meeting, to learn more than to speak. But when asked, I will certainly add any additional valuable comments that I need to make or should make or whatever. I'm just reminded in this work, I just left a conference last week with my colleagues from across the country with the U.S. Equal Opportunity Commission, EEOC. And just as we just shared and were informed about all things that are going on across the country, just unbelievable. So I'm looking forward to trying to do all we can to combat some of those issues, and as it appears to be a rollback of so many things that we thought were battles won, these kind of opportunities to speak and to share are just going to be more and more important. And then to move this beyond the speaking and the sharing to hopefully meaningful action. So glad to be a part of this.
Thank you. Okay, so now that we've had, I think we're missing a few folks, and so I'd like to, knowing that, I think we do need to at least begin having a conversation about calendars. Because of the open meeting requirements, we have to notify our facilitators of the date and time so they can not only be present, but they can record. And so I know that I think Tiffany's on the road, but if we could give an idea about when you think we should have our next 2 or 3 meetings, that might be helpful. Do you think the evenings are better, or the weeknights or weekends?
I have one question. When is our presentation? I don't have our calendar ahead of right in front of me, but what is our date?
November the 9th.
November 9th. Okay, let me put that on my calendar first. Okay.
So that Lisa informs my question. Given we have a little time, but we know how quickly November 9th will come around. I'm just curious to know, because I know everybody who's spoken has if not a platter of things to do. How many, if we can kind of just think, how many meetings do we think we need to have to accomplish what we probably need to talk about is the finished product. That's why I asked the question in the chat, at least with the MCPS, what is the expectation? And how in depth, how voluminous, and just not a lot of time to really do a lot of the background stuff too, because what's on my heart too, and I forgot to mention, I also attend church with Jackie over at the People's Community Baptist Church, and I serve with her on social action. Well, what's on my heart is also getting to the why, the motivation behind all this. And as director said, we're at this again and again, and it's rolling back. And it's rolling back because we have not addressed the root causes, And so the presenter said that this is learned behavior. Okay, well, this is learned behavior. Then there's some why behind that, is why people are learning or teaching these kind of behaviors. So I just want to, kind of get focused on what the outcome is and how much time we think we need to invest in getting to that outcome. And the other thing I will share, I don't think this is going to necessarily sunset after we do our report. I'm sure our in-depth, analysis of some of this is going to carry us beyond that sunset set date. And there will be other things that we would want to do beyond that date. Vis-a-vis, promoting legislation, policy, it's so much crazy stuff going on. I almost want to be able to be at some of the schools during the day. I don't mind, call me if I'm not working or doing this or that. I can come and be a monitor or something, or help out with the count or whatever. But, this is, I just really want to figure out, well, what is going to be the time investment, if we can kind of share that part? What do we think that outcome is going to be?
That's a big question. The ultimate product, the ultimate outcome is a report, right? And I think the report is going to be reflective of, it's going to be internal from what our experiences have been as leaders in the community and also as members of the community. But it should also be external, in that we should invite stakeholders to the conversation. Tiffany's mentioned a lot of her advocacy, and so looking at the grassroots level, so that we are knowing that we are representatives who speak on behalf of all people in the African American community from Montgomery County. And so in order to do that, one of the options would be to have our own meeting, inviting folks from our community to express their concerns or their ideas. Tiffany?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. I was the one that suggested that we come to the table and really share versus just haphazardly putting something together. You'll have to forgive me. I don't do surface work. I don't do things that just sound really good. I want to be sure that we are addressing the concerns of all. And it's been my experience that oftentimes the elites that are in place and the quote unquote community leaders are sometimes very out of touch with people that are not elite and are of a certain economic and academic level. And that's troublesome to me. I often translate between people that both speak English, they just don't speak English in the same manner. There's a casual register and there's a formal register. And the people that do not speak and read in a formal educated manner just simply are not heard. And that troubles me. And that's something that I do bring to the table as an expertise. And in this area, you don't really hear a lot of what I say, especially as it relates to the elitism among people of African descent. And it needs to be discussed. And I'm not prepared to say in this next 10 minutes what that focus needs to be. We really do need to have an in-depth time together to develop what it needs to be. What do we really want to do? What do we want to address? I don't want to take it for granted that we have the same experience just because we all have a similar skin color. So that was my reason for proposing something a bit different and to just be heard. A lot of people here have title and position, And there are some assumptions that come along with that that I tend to break down. So just saying, I'm very blunt and very real. And once again, it's time to do something different and transformational.
Okay, so I think we're all saying the same thing. I'm just trying to get us to put down a date so at least we can have it for next meeting to talk about these issues, because we only have about 8 minutes. So can we get a consensus about, I think Tiffany brought that, she said she sent us a YouTube video and is now resurfacing this as an issue. I think it's important to kind of have a foundation to know where we're coming from and what our interests are and our perspectives and our experiences. So I value that input. Thank you, Tiffany. So to that end, I think we should have at least one more date besides today, in between our next meetings, or even after our next meeting. Doesn't have to be now, but I think we should at least commit pen to paper and have a date certain. So I'm going to go.
Evenings work for me.
Evenings work for you. Okay, good. So in the next 2 weeks, is there a date that's optimal for folks here?
Next 2 weeks can we consider in person?
Yeah.
I'm going to say I'm pretty flexible.
Okay, Tiffany, I was going to say I want a date from you. Okay, all right. Tiffany's flexible. I do the committee meeting next Wednesday, and I have a board meeting on Monday, so I could do next Tuesday, Thursday.
5th and 7th. Okay, let's take a look at the 5th.
Is that right?
I'm open.
Okay, hold on. Let me get
And
my
while you guys look at that, just a friendly reminder that we will break out back into the main room at 8:15 p.m., which is in about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay.
I do have a committee meeting of some kind on Thursday, the 7th. CAC.
Okay, Thursday the 7th. Who has a problem with that date?
No, Thursdays. Oh, wait a minute. I
It's
am
not the
good for
7th.
that date.
Is it the 10th?
5th and 7th. Tuesday's the 5th, and the 7th is a Thursday.
I think you're in the wrong month.
September, right? Oh, Lord. I'm
Talking
sorry.
August.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're right. You're right.
So can we do the 10th at 7?
I am free on the 8th and the 10th. I am completely free.
Okay, can we do the 10th?
Yes.
What day is that? The 10th?
That's a Thursday.
I think that works for me.
Yeah, it could work. One of the things I did suggest, Lisa, not to prolong it, but to do a doodle, like a survey on this and some of the other items we might deal with. And I forestalled doing that because I thought we would need more information about it going forward. But, this would be, I think I can do this one, but hopefully it's not that date will be the reoccurring date.
No, we're just going to put pen to paper
Just
for the
next
10th.
meeting.
And then
Okay.
we can sit down and talk about, we can either bring our calendars to that meeting, or we can do a doodle and then we can do a survey monkey too, if you guys want. Now, so Tiffany recommended in person. Tiffany, what are your ideas for in person?
So I first of all want to know if there's a budget for food, honey, because I have to eat. I'm Southern now. I'm Southern, and if there's not, then we need to make provision for our dinner.
That's common.
I can say I'm more than happy to put together some type of activities, because that's what I do professionally, but I don't have to be that person. We can all come to the table and determine what that looks like. But
I just want to know location for our meeting.
Yeah, location.
Oh, okay. Where does everyone live? I'm in Gaithersburg.
Silver Spring.
Silver Spring.
Silver Spring.
Okay, so I'm happy to come to East County or middle in the middle. One of the libraries could possibly work, or if you have another thought,
Director
Lisa,
Stowe, do you have meetings
someone's
on the
church or?
I could do my church, but it's in downtown Silver Spring.
I am open because I drive, so as long as it's comfortable for everybody else.
Or we could do Rockville. I was going to ask Director Stowe, we can use his space.
So Lisa, would this complicate the Open Meetings Act? Because I thought all of our meetings have to be recorded.
You can record them by secretary. You can either do it. You can record by video or by taking notes and then posting.
Okay, because I thought they were live streaming those too, but maybe not.
I will relay whatever, just sorry to interrupt, I will relay whatever you guys choose in terms of date, time, and location. I will relay that to our group as well with the council office. So we can all be aware of that as well.
Okay.
Okay, so we've decided our next meeting will be on August the 10th. Location TBA. So the two choice would be, I could do, my church is St. Michael's, is in downtown Silver Spring, or we can do maybe something in Rockville, which is where Director Stowe's office is. And,
Yes, it's available.
okay, all right. So yes,
And this could be hybrid, right? At least.
I think Tiffany wants us all to be there.
Well,
Well,
it can sometimes.
I may not be able to be there, but I could probably be on camera or be on my phone.
Okay.
The issue is that it's hard to sometimes hear others, but we can certainly make some type of provision. It's just hard when there's one set of people together and then one person's kind of out without technology.
My concern too, I do a lot of meetings and I'm not getting paid to do this. So nobody's paying me to put gas in my car either. So, you know, I want to do this, but I want to be able to do it at my own convenience. If I can be on virtually, that would help because I have a
prefer
number.
virtual too.
Yeah.
Okay, so you prefer, so we're gonna have to circulate email about this. Okay, we'll do an email about this.
Yeah.
It looks like 50%.
Virtual for team building can leave a lot to be desired, but what can I say?
Okay, so we'll do virtual then for the first one. All right, so we have agreed to the 10th at 7 p.m. Thank you, Director Stowe, for offering your fiscal.
So I think we need to probably schedule time, which I had on my list to do this week to send to everybody. And then I can let Selena and Bertha know, you know, what.
We'll meet at a deli.
Seriously, why don't we? I mean,
do you want to just do a doodle or something? And yeah, we can go to Parkway
Yeah.
or wherever you want to go. And
the only thing is, I think I think we actually do have to do it virtual because they have to record it. So
Right.
for the Open Meetings Act and stuff. So we can each just eat our sandwiches and pickles at home, you know. But yeah, that's what I was going to do. I was going to create a doodle poll for like the next 2 weeks, see when everybody's free. I don't think this is going to be really difficult for us considering, especially Alan, Ron, and I do this daily. So we certainly do want, of course, Alec, your feedback. And, you know, we all three of us work closely with Rabbi Shankman, and I know she has a lot of ideas. So I think it's just a matter of taking a look at some of the different questions, and then we can kind of see, you know, what we really, you know, what we want to do, you know, as far as answering them. And I think, Alan, for you and I, it's probably going to be a lot of our different data and stuff that you and I, you know, already have done together, you know, some of the presentations you and I have done together that we can probably, you know, pull up some of the info. And then what I was just thinking after Damon was talking, and specifically, we can answer some of the things we've been doing with MCPS also, which I think would be helpful for some of the other cohorts that really don't work with MCPS as much. And I was going to put that out. I raised my hand, but it was getting too long. I was going to suggest that. I really do think it would be beneficial for all the different demographics, the way like ADL and JCRC have been doing some of the trainings and some of the work, Alan, you and I have been doing with the community at large, like with the Montgomery College thing, I'm thinking that we did. Like, I think that there are some real key suggestions because so much of this is obviously education. So I'm going to pause. So Alan, yeah, please.
I mean, we may want to take a look at the White House plan and see if there are particular things for state and local government. I know we've got our call to action, which parallels it. And, you know, may just want to take a look at, you know, those pillars and say, okay, are there things that we can recommend? I met with Selena last week. We had lunch and she had read the plan, the anti-Semitism plan, like cover to cover. And she was very happy to see that the council was doing pretty much everything that was recommended in the plan. So that gives us an opportunity to move beyond the council to make recommendations for the broader community, which I think is really quite good. So it's something to think about.
I also think the aspect, one of the things in the question was that I know you're doing and we're doing, and I know Ron is doing a little bit of it too, but is the workplace which really
Mhm.
reaches the larger
Right.
community. It reaches a lot of different parents and stuff. Like I've had parents after incidents who have reached out and say, can you come and help my law firm just so we
Right.
can educate, more people and things like that.
Yep.
I worked Andrew Winter happens to be a close friend of mine, and I worked with Andrew to help set up like the Jewish employee resource group that they did for faculty at MCPS, which they didn't have before. So like,
Right.
I think those
That's
type of
good.
suggestions. Yeah. So I think that some of that I think would also probably be like beneficial. But I also, look, my opinion, you and I know, like Alec, like this is a larger problem beyond just the county. And,
Right.
we know the trajectory of things. And, we can talk about just the state of what we're seeing with hate and extremism. The one thing nobody has really talked about that I would love to bring into this is social media and just
Mhm.
understanding the impact on students. And look, one of the examples, there was a middle school student this year who drew a swastika on a desk, and the kid said he saw it on TikTok and he thought it was funny. And he didn't know what it was. So like that kind of, I think are things that we can also talk about. Yeah, Alec, you like you're going to say something.
Well, I was wondering and listening to sort of our charge, and of course I had been thinking about like, well, I assume that the bulk of the incidents are in the schools and, between high school, but maybe it's larger than that, and it doesn't necessarily, I mean, I'm sure it's larger than that, but I was wondering what the incidents are. Are we focusing on the schools? Maybe we're not. A friend of mine, paper clips from 15 years ago, maybe might be, to my mind, we're obviously not solving so we're not erasing it, but that might be an educational thing. And I was thinking about the schools, but this is obviously bigger than that. So I just, I don't have any answers, or just was wondering what our charge is and where we might make the recommendations. And it sounded like they were suggesting that our charge is to offer up legislative or budget policy items to say, yes, have the council invest or spend or dedicate this. So that's just an interesting directive, which I wasn't sure where we might go versus the other committees as well. So,
I mean, look, I think some of the things are going to potentially have legislative implications. So I also sit on the Maryland the Hate Crimes Commission, and there are things we're going to be looking at there. So, anything from there, I'll bring back to this, but we haven't started meeting yet. There are things, because Montgomery County has its own, has home rule. There are things that we can do from a legislative standpoint. So, for example, a lot of the white supremacist propaganda, so the flyers, right now, nationwide, there really are very little laws to combat that. That's not a school problem. That's why I say this is a larger problem, because tonight was just about schools, but we're seeing a lot manifesting in schools, but in the larger community. And even on littering charges, you really can't get most of them. So we're actually doing research right now, legal research, that I may have in time for us to present to this, not when we report out in our cohort, but just in general about like legislation that is quite possible at a county and municipal level to look at, to go after some of those individuals. From a funding standpoint, I think, we're Montgomery County, we all know, is like way ahead of most other places when it comes to things like security funding. But there could be implications for like, the police department in their investigative process, or just for how, community education programs that are not being done, enough, how to report incidents. So I think all, things like that, a lot of the work like AJC and ADL does do.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Diana, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say hello, Diana Eisenstadt. Our paths have crossed. I'm with Senator Van Hollen's office, and I just wanted to let you know, however we can be supportive, we certainly want to partner with you and do, anything that we can.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Diana.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
All right, we've solved everything.
Yeah, I mean, to Alec's point, I think we don't want to get caught up strictly with the issue of the schools.
No.
Because I think it's a rabbit hole we can go down, and we're going to miss the bigger picture here. The Bethesda trolley trail defacing had nothing to do with the schools, as far as I know. We don't even know if the thing at the high school was actually from students. And that's
Right.
part of the issue here is that we don't know, and this is, I think, something we need to talk about with somebody. We don't know who is actually doing these kinds of things in the community, and I don't think the police know, and I'm not sure they're ever going to know. But it would be helpful if there was, rather than just say, well, we just don't know who does that kind of stuff and move on, to actually try to do something about it. One of the things you said, Meredith, which I think has a lot of merit, is this, sort of educating various groups and sectors and getting to, the law firms, whatever, which I think is right on beam. I wonder, I was a little unnerved a little bit that we have to go first, because it sort of sets us up in a weird sort of position.
Yeah.
But I wonder how much of this can we do with the other groups. So, for example, when I did a training for Japanese American Citizens League a couple of years ago on anti-Semitism, we also brought in the folks from JACL, and they talked about anti-AAPI violence and hate. So it seems to me we will be stronger when we are out there showing the multicultural flag, if you will, than rather it being parochial to each individual group. Because I would much rather have, somebody from the Latino community speak up against anti-Semitism than hearing it from just us, and I think that's really important. And I'm saying things you already know.
Yeah, but actually, Alan, I really actually think that that's a really good way for how we can present things. So like looking at it from the larger issue of hate and bias. We're experts on anti-Semitism and, how it's been manifesting for millennia. I mean, we all know it's not something new, but how it's showing up today, we can give a quick overview of that. But I think if we could focus on the larger, in lack of a better word, the intersectionality of hate and extremism. And one of the things that we know, all of us here, look, the reality is when we start seeing a rise in certain forms of hate, you see it in all forms of hate. And so how that is, working together, and a lot of the work that, that you do, that JCRC does, that we do, that Rabbi Stu Shankman does, that Alec, you do in the community, like showing how we do partner with other organizations. So it's not, the cohorts are great because it comes from, what each of these groups mean and how everybody's being impacted. But the reality is that we need to learn better about each other. That's a big thing with the anti-hate task force. And I agree with you. I think if we can present it that way, we can be experts in talking about different things like related to white supremacist propaganda or whatever else. And we can certainly outline a few things related to that our organizations have information on that will help guide. But the reality, I think you're correct. To me, I think that's much better for setting the tone also. It's not one or the other. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't want to overstate it. I think there's a parochial aspect to this as well. I don't think we want to have anti-Semitism washed out among the other isms.
No, not at all.
And I'm not suggesting you're saying that. But I think sometimes we wind up in a situation, as we've seen, with the county executives present, proclamations and stuff where he lists every single thing except anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
We have to be careful not to wash ourselves out. So there's two ideas we have to hold in our hand at the same time, parochial and universal, and getting that balance right is going to be the art here. There's not a science involved.
Yeah.
I love that approach. And I think that perhaps we have historical references as immigrants to new immigrants and how it, what we've gone through nationally and, here in Maryland as well, historically across Maryland and Montgomery County. So, I mean, I love the idea of, obviously they have us as a group. We certainly need to stand tall, but having someone else speak for us as well, or in addition to it, I think makes a stronger statement broadly. So, and if we were
one another is
and if we were to do that for some of the other groups as well, I think that might, be very strong as well. So I think great, Alan, that was really great. Yeah.
And to Alan, to your point about having the other groups speak up for each other, I think there needs to be, you know, I see it was just put in the chat, you know, what are we trying to accomplish? There has to be a better understanding of the overall community. Some of the incidents that we are seeing, whether it's in schools or the community, and police do know some of the perpetrators, not most, they don't. Most, you know, we know that that's really difficult, but there are a few. And some comes from a place of, you know, ignorance. We know that, but the impact it still has on the community is the key. It's not even, I mean, the intent is always important, but the impact. And so I think that that's something, you know, that there needs to be, and that's why I think, to your point, we can't just wash away anti-Semitism. We need to be very strong in that and making sure everybody understands the way we are seeing it show up today. It is not just a swastika, because that is so easy for everybody. There are so many other things. And I think that's what we have to, we'll have to fine tune in our cohort meeting, how we want to present that, and then how we see it impacting all the other pieces.
Right. Well, look, we've got an instruction here. We're going to reconvene in 7 minutes. We have to discuss what we are trying to accomplish, which I think you've just articulated beautifully. We have a cohort chair, our articulator, and we need to determine dates and times of meetings. I guess we should probably, why don't we just pick, when you go and look at your calendar, let's pick like the 3rd Wednesday or the 2nd Tuesday or something like that. Because I mean, I guess we still need to keep meeting after our presentation, right? What we're going to meet about, I'm not sure.
The cohorts? Well, I mean, the larger task force, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, if we can, you know, don't have to do this after, you know, the end of August, you know, I'll come to the regular meetings, but if we don't have to have a Jewish meeting every month, that's fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, just looking
the
at
Elders of Zion have enough of my time. You know, I've got to go to the Elders of Zion meeting. I mean, you haven't been for a while, Meredith. You got to show up.
Recruit some non-Jewish people to our cohort.
There you go. So yeah, that I just want to know what I'm supposed to do. That's all.
Are you just looking at the calendar by any chance? Next Wednesday, the 9th. Do you guys have any availability in the afternoon? Or if evening is easier, Alec, it might be easier for you. Evening, I don't know. Either?
Either are fine. I'm actually grabbing my let me see right here.
I was just pulling a calendar while I was looking. The 9th or the 10th.
I am shockingly open on the 9th. Like scary open.
I know, it worries me when you're open.
Well, what it is I think I cleared the decks because, you know, I hired a new AD. I don't know if you know this. I hired Alexis. Did you know that?
Wait, what?
I hired Alexis Schwartz. She's coming to work for me.
Messaging me and I haven't had a chance to talk to her.
Yeah, well, because she's going to work for Brand X. So she's coming on the 9th.
That's awesome. I love it.
A refugee camp for ex-JCRC staff. But
that's awesome.
It's inside baseball here, you know. But no, Alexis is coming on the 9th. So I actually have a lot of time.
Okay.
And certainly that evening I could do it.
So
I'm open.
What?
I'm relatively open, so just set some times.
Okay. Alan, what about the 10th also? I'm just looking at it as a possible alternative if for Sue and Ron, and I can email everybody too.
One moment, please. 10th evening is good.
Okay. All right. So we'll suggest, I'll email everybody later and just suggest the 9th or the 10th and just throw a couple of dates out, a couple of times for there.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. I think we are going back in just a few minutes.
Yeah. We could
Diana, how are you? How have you been?
And I've been well, very, very busy, like everybody else all the time.
Anything we can do to be of help or anything you need from us these days?
You know, I appreciate the opportunity to hear from you all firsthand. It's helpful for me to be able to pass a lot of that along. I know that you all have your own conversations with the senator and his staff, but I'm I'm happy to help. I try and spend a lot of time in the Jewish community in Montgomery County in particular, but happy to pass anything along.
Great, perfect.
So what we wanted to have you discuss, well, as part of the resolution, you needed to select a cohort chair. I don't know if you've already had discussed who was going to be the chair for your group. Now's the opportunity to do that. And the roles for the chair is pretty much to call for meetings. And I see here that we've also joined with Dr. Campbell, who is a representative from Montgomery College. Thank you. Welcome. Thanks for being here with us. So in summary, you are going to, like I said, select the cohort chair and start thinking about your meetings that you're gonna, schedule for the cohort to then start mapping out the work. And, by the end of our cohort meeting just now, we are also asking all of you to very briefly report out to the full group who's going to be your co-chair. And if there are any meetings, even if they're tentative, that's going to help to share with the full group. So I do want to remind you of key action items that were part of the council approved resolution. So as you know, and I'm sorry to sound so repetitive, but I'm reading through the resolution now. So each cohort must designate a cohort chair that will meet at the call of the chair. Meetings of the task force have to comply with Maryland Open Meetings Act. And as Selena shared at the very beginning of the meeting, if you haven't taken the trainings, please do so. And my name should be already automatically generate the email that goes to you with the certificate. I automatically get it too. So once you complete that, I'll be getting that information as well. And then finally, the most important part is that the task force has to submit and present its final report with any recommendations for legislation, regulations, policies, procedures. I mean, any policy ideas that you discuss that you want to recommend to the council. This will be on our last meeting on November 28th. And so this is why it's important that the cohorts start meeting now, because as you also have received, we do have a timeline where there's been already cohorts that have been assigned to do their presentations. Our next meeting on the 29th will be our Jewish cohort partners who will be presenting. September 19th will be the Muslim cohort. And then October 10th, right in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month, will be the Latino Hispanic cohort making the presentations. So again, I'll turn it over to you all to select a cohort chair and then start determining, thinking about the dates and times that you want to meet. And as you know, Selena and I are here to support you with this work. We're going to get all the Zoom links that you need if you're going to meet in person. We can facilitate reserving space, sending calendar invitations, making sure agendas are posted on our website. And lastly, I will mention that there's no limit to the number of times you can meet. And if you also want to hold a community listening session, we're here to facilitate that work. Yeah, and I do know that there's a couple of our cohort members who are not here today. Danny Centeno and Vanessa Pinto. I'll certainly be reaching out to them to update them with, our conversation today and making sure that they're able to contribute as well. So I'll turn it over to you, Alex, Nora, Ruben.
I can go first. I think I speak for the group that this is the first time that we're all meeting together. And so I think that one, we'll obviously have to identify, the system or process that we want to use to identify this chair. But two, as you noted, we also have two members that may be out, that are out, and you know, I don't know what their interest is, and so it is kind of catching us by surprise a little bit, that since this is the first time that we are actually meeting. So I don't know if Nora or Ruben, if you guys have any concerns or questions before we begin. I guess my question to you, Bertha, is it seems like we have to get this done this evening. And so, yeah, I'll pass it over to Nora or Ruben.
Well, I want to say first, you know, Berta, I'm sorry for like the misunderstanding the other day, you know, like with the email. But thank you so much for like you know, square things up and work things with me, because I was like freaking out. I was like, oh, I'm not getting like the things that I need to be done, you know. So thanks so much, you know. And yeah, Alex, so I've been trying to reach, you know, like some parts of the community. I talked with like some people of like the delegates of Maryland. They are opening, you know, it's like to also give us some input to. I think that like what Berta mentioned about having like community listening, I think that's going to be important too. And designating the chair, I don't know, Alex, I see that you are like, I think that you are the youngest here. And I will say that, you know, I really like your passion and your enthusiasm, like what I see so far. And, you know, if you consider, you know, to be like a designated chair, maybe you are like a good candidate. I don't know what like Eva and the rest, you know, like a thing, you know, but.
I think I want to hear from Nora first. Nora, if you have any comments.
I was just gonna, so first of all, I'm Nora Morales. I am a program director at Identity, a longtime community member, lived in Montgomery County 23 years. My kids graduated from MCPS. I want to tell you a little bit about me. I would love to hear about you. I know Alex through CASA's work. And of course, Berta, don't have the pleasure of knowing Michelle or Hugo, but I'd love to hear more about them. I agree with Ruben and what Ruben is saying about Alex's passion, and I am happy. You know, I am happy to allow to nominate Alex to be our coach, to be our chair. I'm really fine with that.
Amazing.
Well, yeah.
I don't know, Nora, I think, you know, if you want to just take the opportunity to also kind of just introduce yourself, give us more background, what brought you to this work. I know we did a little bit in the initial session, but I think that it's important to kind of just refresh for our cohort why we're here, and then what we can bring to, or what we wish to bring to the overall anti-task force.
So I will say yes, as long as I get to hear from everyone, because I missed the first meeting. It was my daughter's birthday, and so I already had plans. So I'm an immigrant. I was born in Mexico, and I grew up very, very poor. I found that the United States is a wonderful place for realizing your dreams, as long as you have key information to help along the way. I have had both the blessing and the curse of being the first Latina in a lot of spaces, including my elementary schools, middle school, high school. And even in college, I went to Tufts, and I'm really dating myself now, but in the 1990s, there was no such thing as a Hispanic Student Association. And so it was something that we started. And my first experience in college was the fact that someone drove up next to me and spit at me and called me a spick and said, you know, spick, go back to your country. So you know, I feel like in every job I've had, I've been in the workforce for 28 years and worked largely in schools before coming to Identity. My last job was as equity officer for Prince George's County Public Schools. And so I got to see an insider's point of view of racial incidents, that happen across the school district. And also how so underrepresented Latinos are in the advocacy space to have incidents resolved, and to have allies, right? So even, I was looking at and taking pictures of the forms and things, and even with how plugged in I am, I had no idea there was a hate incidents bias form, right, in MCPS. And if I don't know that, then I don't expect recent arrivals to know that either. And so I think I'm driven by the fact that my kids, they're Latino and white. And one of my daughters looks very white and one of my daughters looks very Latina. And whatever that means, right? Una más café con leche and otra más leche con café. And so, and they were treated very differently. And their experiences are so different, even though they had the same last name. So that's why I'm here. I'm here because I don't think anyone should have to suffer alone those kinds of incidents.
Ruben, you want to go next?
Yeah, so hello everybody. I think I only meet like Alex during like the first meeting. So yeah, I'm like glad to meet you all. Soy Rubén Meana Pañera. I'm originally an immigrant, but I'm originally from Spain. Since it's like we moved here 6 years ago, and since I moved to this area, I've been trying to like get involved on a lot of issues, since from like the PTA of the school that is like 80%, it's Hispanic and Latino. So I know like a lot of like the problems and the challenges that all these families they have. And I've been trying to advocate, to help as much as I can, me and my wife, including my wife too. And actually an invitation to this task force was like, it took me by surprise, because when they offered me, it's like, yeah, I will be able to help. But yeah, this is like something like really important. I think that it's going to be critical, or the work that we are going to be done here and our recommendations, they are going to be really, really important, and they are going to have like a big impact on our community. So yeah, so I hear in like a personal capacity, but at the same time, I'm trying to, in my role as an advocate during the PTA, I've been meeting a lot of people, I would say it's like the last year, a lot of people, it's like around the PTAs, government. I've been like testifying like for Montgomery County in different like forums, trying to get in touch with different associations. Now get involved more like with MCPS and trying to address with like some other council members issues that they really affect us all. And I think that the hate crimes that we are seeing, listed here, they are like extremely troubling.
Thanks,
So
Ruben.
I'm looking forward to work with you all.
Thanks. I'll try to be brief because I see that we are running down on time. But hola, buenas noches a todos. Me llamo Alex. I am an immigrant, Mexican immigrant. Came here when I was very young, have lived the majority, if not my entire life here in the United States and in Maryland. And I'm very excited to be on this anti-task force with you all. And I am a community organizer. I do work with the CASA organization as a lead community organizer. And I've also had the pleasure of working with Nora on a few events throughout the years. I think that I like to always approach the work as an organizer, right? I think that there's a lot that we're going to learn in the next few weeks. There's a lot that we don't know. There's a lot of lived experience that we each bring. But the way that I also like to continue learning is really reaching out to the community and making it easy for them to be able to participate in this conversation. which we know from, I guess, like my learned experience, and I'm sure Nora can tell you, and even Ruben, right? It's not easy getting the Latin community involved for various reasons, for a lot of obstacles that that they're encountering on a daily basis, especially amongst our undocumented community. And so I really look forward to finding ways that we can go to community members so that they can really engage in this conversation, because they are not immune to this. And I think that doing this in a way that's authentic is going to really give us the information that we need, right, in order to be able to make recommendations to the council. So with that being said, I don't know, Bertha, Michelle, Hugo, if you guys want to just quickly introduce yourselves and then proceed.
Sure. Hi. So I'm Michelle Campbell, and I am the Senior Vice President for Advancement and Community Engagement at Montgomery College. I'm very new. I'm an ex officio member of this group and of the task force. I've been at Montgomery College for a hot minute. I've been there for 8 weeks. Prior to that, I was in the state of New Jersey at Middlesex College for 5 years in a vice president role as well. And I'm sure some of you know a thing or two about Montgomery College, but we are a designated Hispanic serving institution by the federal government, as well as an MSI, which is Minority Serving Institution, and an AAPI, which is also a federal designation. So we have a very diverse student population. 28% of our students identify as Latinx, and 79% as BIPOC. So this is a very important, our students are incredibly important to us. Our community and county are very important to us. And so I'm here to serve as a resource to this task force, as also being a liaison and sounding board for the college as part of this effort by the county.
Hugo, do you want to quickly share an introduction?
Yeah, I wanted everybody to go first since I'm new. Hi, everybody. Sorry for my camera. I'm still recovering from COVID. So I'm right on the end of it. My name's Hugo Cantu. My parents are Mexican immigrants. I am here representing Councilmember Will Jawando's office. Like Dr. Campbell, I'm very new. I've been here 2 days. I came from Prince George's County as the policy director to Council Chair Tom Dranoga over there in the county. I'm a proud graduate of Montgomery College, so I know how important it is to have that institution available to especially first generation college students in Montgomery County, and using that and using that as a jumping point to whatever the next goal was. And for me, it was the University of Maryland, where I studied public policy and real estate development, and got my hand in interning at the General Assembly, where I wrote some pieces of legislation with the delegates, and then got to the county council in Prince George's County and did that for a while. And just, being a guest and being a fly on the wall and just trying to learn. I have a lot of friends still in Montgomery County, and I was seeing all the headlines and the news and the outlets and the reports of the spikes. And I think it's a very good point that Ms. Morales said, where if you don't have the time to look, how are you knowing that these spikes are happening? I think outside of having a student in the classroom, like, that comes home every day and talks to you about it. And I'm just really sad to hear that was an experience that you had, Ms. Morales, growing up. And I think it's a very powerful statement, and I think this whole team seems really, really dedicated to figuring out how to go forward with it. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And I'll be super, super quick. So Berta Lidia Cersosimo, I have been with the county council for a little bit over 10 years. Formerly, I was with Councilmember Nancy Navarro, serving residents of District 4, the old District 4. I am now in the communications office as the multicultural communications and outreach manager. So I do a lot of outreach work in our community, our immigrant community. I am super excited to support your work. And I know we did have one other item that we needed to discuss, which was the potential meeting. So I don't know if you wanted to perhaps start thinking whether you want to meet again in the next week or, in the next 10 days, whatever you think you may be able to meet within the cohort. That's something that I can certainly help you facilitate and administer.
Yeah, I think that's the plan, given the short timeline that we're on. And so I'm not sure if maybe perhaps Nora and Ruben, we could communicate via email, right? Or at least put together a meeting where we can iron out just like our overall plan for the next few weeks and then go from there.
Sounds good.
And as far as deliverables, Nora, so the expectation is to come up with at least 5 policy recommendations. Per the resolution, you also have to describe a rationale for each of the recommendations. We are going to circulate sample reports from
So, and I'm just here, to provide whatever support you need. I'm not a part of your cohort. This is your group. And so I'll just be here to listen. And as you saw, I needed to put on recording and do whatever else I'm supposed to be doing. So I will do that. I don't know if you noticed who else might have been in your cohort that was also here. If we're missing anybody, and if not, you can go ahead and get started.
I think that we can start. I saw that Rabbi Adam sent an email that he wasn't going to be able to join us. So I believe that would make 1, 2, 3, 4 of us. Are there 5 of us or 4 of us?
I think there's 5. I don't have that in front of me. I think, yeah. I thought Ruben was in this group, but maybe not.
Okay. Alrighty. So maybe we could look at the list, or we could introduce ourselves. How do you all want to do this? How do you want to begin? I definitely only know one person here.
I was going to say the exact same thing. And so I didn't know if like Michael was in the in the space or wanted to jump in as well so that we could hear from him. Oh, there's Melissa.
Oh, there's Melissa.
Hi, Melissa.
Hello. This is Michael. I'm a community member, and my husband and I live here with our son in Montgomery County. I'm on the Commission for Children and Youth, and we're taking up LGBTQ just in general in our upcoming year. And so I was hoping to kind of just hear what the anti-hate task force was doing on this area, so we can make sure we're not duplicating, but also maybe synergize what we're doing.
Awesome.
Okay. So, I guess I have a question. So, Selena, do you have a list of who is on the task force, of this part of the task force? You're muted.
I'm trying to pull that up. So I'll pull it. I'm looking for it. I thought I had it right in front of me, but I don't. So I need to just find it. I'll do that in a second.
Yeah, awesome. In the meantime, my name is Philip Alexander Downey. I'm a lifelong-ish resident of Montgomery County, Gaithersburg resident. And I am the executive director of Living Your Truth and Montgomery County Pride. And so I do a lot of programming for LGBTQIA plus Montgomery County Pride Center, and do a lot of programming for Plus youth in the community. A lot of the work of Living Your Truth and the Living Your Truth organization is supporting all intersectional underserved communities, focusing on those who are most actively, systematically disenfranchised in our communities. And so, of course, right now, unfortunately, that is trans and non-binary people of color. And so a lot of our resources and work focus on LGBTQIA plus communities, but we try and focus and represent communities of like all intersectional communities. And so one of our focuses, like my personal projects, are Black Girl Magic Stories, which I absolutely love. And we work in any people that we bring on, we try and have more representation for. And I'm also, along with Reverend Ali, one of the co-chairs for the Coalition for Inclusive Schools and Communities, that is working on and talking about and addressing this issue right now, that we will be discussing in the hate task force.
Nice. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Melissa Pace. I work at Montgomery College, and I specifically work in the communications department at MCTV, and all the special populations that are part of the anti-hate task force are groups that I feel deserve support, and anything that I can do, to help bring awareness or positive messaging or individual stories, on our cable channel or any other means for the college is something that I'm interested in. So thanks for letting me hop on the meeting.
Wonderful. That's awesome. I'm Reverend Ali Casey Bell. I am a Unitarian Universalist minister at Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Bethesda, Maryland. I'm a trans man. My pronouns are he, they, or you can call me Reverend Ali. I am the Minister of Congregational Life and Engagement at Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I am the first out Black trans minister in Unitarian Universalism in Maryland, which is fun. And also, I work with Philip, Inclusive Schools, and within Unitarian Universalism, I work with our the advocacy part of our programs. You may have seen us with the yellow shirts on the side of love, that part of our programming. Our congregation does a lot of social justice issues around inclusiveness, LGBTQIA things, around sanctuary, etc. And I am also a chaplain for our trans non-binary, gender non-conforming ministers and congregants. And that's some of the stuff that you can know about me. And I've been a activist for LGBTQIA people for about 30 years. And I'm excited to be here. This is my first full year. I just re-signed my lease. So I have officially been a Montgomery County resident for 1 full year, going into my 2nd year. Thank you for having me here.
So Reverend Ali, it just popped off again. Why is this happening? Well, I have 4 members. There's a Vanessa who's not here. And in my computer, this is not a good night for my computer to be doing this, right? Well, there were 4 people and I had the list up and now it's gone again. So I apologize for that.
That's okay. All righty. So I guess the thing that we needed to do is going to be difficult to do, Philip, because it's just you and I here. We needed to choose who was going to be the kind of leader of the group. And I had already decided it was going to be you before I came. Just because I feel like unless one of the other people who come feel like so deeply inclined to do this work, I think that you just have a vast network of people you already know in Montgomery County that living your truth has been working in the county for quite some time, and it would just be a better use of our resources to start from that position of strength, if you would be so inclined.
It's hilarious that you said that because I was going to choose anyone but the two of us because I know what our lives are looking like.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But I was gonna say, welcome to the county, Reverend Ali. Let's throw you right into the but yeah, I mean, I don't like the other two who are not here currently. I would love to give them a chance to also hold this leadership position.
Absolutely.
Is this something? Yeah, is this something, Selena, that we need inside this meeting, or is it something that we could? Oh, it is. Okay, okay.
How about co-chairs?
Yeah. Are we allowed to co-chair? Can we have a circular structure?
Yes.
Awesome.
I love that. I love that.
Great. We'll do that.
Yeah. Yes, we're co-chairs for now, and then any of the co-chairs who have decided they would not like to be co-chairing, then they can drop off. We like that that equal peace and diversity that we'll have within this group.
Yes, we're gonna clear the structure of authority.
Yes.
So I've been thinking about this anti-hate task force. Philip and I were thinking about it before in a different meeting. And I was wondering, it's kind of hard because no one is here. I mean, you all are here, so I guess we'll talk to you. Michael, you said that you're with, what was it again? Children and youth? Was that what you said?
Yeah, I'm on the Commission for Children and Youth, and I'm also a board member for Identity, which mostly serves Latino youth and other historically underserved youth and families.
Awesome. So when you said that you all are thinking about working with or have decided that you're going to be working with LGBTQIA youth as your focus this year. Did I hear that right?
Correct.
So can you give us more of an idea of what you were thinking about? And then we can see how we can work together in that or
I honestly, I'm not quite sure yet. Our first meeting will be in, I think we've broke for the summer, but I don't know. I've been trying to figure that out because I feel like I don't want to do work that someone else is doing. But I do think the anti-racist audit we're just at the beginning of now implementing what we found in it. And so I assume that whatever we do will probably somehow involve the anti-racist audit as a guide to see where we might be able to make some changes or recommendations for the council. But beyond that, I really, I'm not quite sure yet. I think the first meeting or two, and I don't know what you all are planning on doing, but I was planning on trying to find some people like you all in our county who are involved in the queer community to just, especially queer youth, if we can find queer youth that are open to discussing just what's going on in their lives and what areas do they think they need more assistance or programming or whatever it is that our county can provide.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. Nothing about us without us. I was thinking about just there are so many resources that are lacking in our community, and looking at how the resources that we do have may not actually, meet the needs of the community that we have right now. Thinking about like how Montgomery County could do a better job at making sure that the resources that we need actually get to organizations that start with a lens that is that has cultural humility, that understands the queer community, that leads from a queer perspective, and not just people who, just say that, we do queer things. We do LGBTQIA people, but from a sense of, everybody, we love everybody. Everybody is the same. So we want to make sure that we do these resources. And so, but not really truly understanding the depth that it means to serve a person who is LGBTQIA, understanding the culture, understanding the background, understanding how services impact people differently. You know what I mean? Does anybody wanna?
Yeah,
So.
yeah, I completely agree with you, Ali. And I think that a wonderful thing about Montgomery County is that there are resources. Now what we need to do is like link those resources to the communities that really need them, and having organizations who are there to like bridge those gaps or to facilitate those like in need communities getting those resources, like from with Reverend Ali, and there's so many amazing faith-based affirming leaders of LGBTQIA plus identities, and then just ensuring that we have a resource hub where people can go and say, hey, I want to get my spirituality on, whatever walk of faith I want to be in. Like, I know that there is an affirming space for me. Like within some of the work that I do with like local TV, and like DC television and MMC TV, we look for those representational pieces of work and like making sure that individuals of all walks of life feel represented. So Michael, when you're talking about like work with youth, I feel like if this is something they would be receptive to, then we could utilize like different resources and connections that we have to ensure that we're creating programs where they represented. And so like so with one of the programs I did was LGBTQ Pioneers, or Black LGBTQ Pioneers, and that local TV program was utilized in Montgomery County Public Schools to do like at Bethesda Chevy Chase High School as a part of their history of these individuals and pioneers. And the young people were like, oh, I would love to continue this work by choosing my own or who I really admire and then bring them to the forefront. Because this was specifically talking about, it was for Black History Month, so specifically talking about Black LGBTQI pioneers. And so it's like when I see those stories, I feel like, hey, maybe youth can get involved where they're doing some type of it's a specific project-based learning, which I love. I love project-based learning where youth can get together and like create projects where we are tackling these diverse issues, showing you that like there are all of these walks, like we all walk in all of these different spaces in life, and like our celebration of diversity is beautiful, and like perhaps we can utilize our special representation. Me, I'm a first generation Montgomery County resident with Jamaican parentage who grew up in a Christian household, and like, have 4 siblings and like 20 nieces and nephews. A lot of them also are in MCPS right now, but then I also have my husband's siblings, which is why we have so many. And which are also in MCPS public schools. And like one of them work on Black Girl Magic stories with me. Actually, 2 of them do, and love the representation as Black women that they do within those stories. And I feel like we can do that with so many different other walks of life. Like I see a need for Muslim stories and diverse Muslim stories being put on the forefront. I see a need for just diverse Hispanic stories, and like those intersectional pieces where we explore like, and you know, I love involving youth and making them like executive producers and directors and casting, to bring them into the fold and say like, this is my story, I want to tell it, I'm part of it. And they all learn from each other, because when you put a diverse group of young people in rooms and they're just talking about just the normal stuff that just happens to them, and they're like, wow, I didn't even know, I thought that that was just a joke that I was saying to you, but it really was to you, and your perspective has made me understand, because like kids can understand, or young people can understand so much. It's just giving them the opportunities and the spaces to really allow themselves to like tell their stories and be heard and be seen. And I was groups of like that project-based learning like really lends itself to that.
So this reminds me of this thing that just happened at one of our camps. So we have we do a few queer camps, and at a couple of our UU camps, specifically for queer kids, LGBTQIA kids. And then we do a trans camp. 1 week is just trans, gender nonconforming, and non-binary kids. And the counselors are transgender, nonconforming, and non-binary. And so that they just have like this immersive experience of being with each other. And the feedback at the end of the week, over and over again from the youth, were like the best thing that they got from camp was having an interaction with trans adults, because they really didn't know if they would survive past 18. So that was like, what? Like, they're like, well, you know, like if you're like a superstar, of course, like we see people on TV, but like everyday people with everyday jobs, we didn't know, like you could just be like this normal person. You didn't have to have like a drug addiction, or you didn't have to have this or that. Like you just work at a camp. Like I didn't know that was a thing. And so this representation of stories, that really gets to me. One thing that we do in our congregation when we do cross-cultural communication is teaching people how to tell their own stories. Like, what part of your story is yours for you, and what part of your story do you want to share with other people, and then have them sit down and talk to each other. And it just creates such a closeness between people, and it works a lot actually to change the way that people believe that they see people. They go in thinking that they believe one thing, and then they leave seeing that, you know, the interdependence of life and how people are actually more alike than they are different. And
Sorry to
so
interrupt, but they're going to kick us out of this room in 1 minute. And the
yes,
expectation is not only that you come back and say that you're co-chairs, but to to share the next meeting, when you're going to meet again.
when should we meet again?
Uh-oh, I think you only have 25 seconds.
All right, when will we meet again, Philip? Let's see. We'll text.
I love hearing what you're talking about, though. I think that resonates
Philip,
with
you're
a lot of our
muted, by the
students.
way. Philip, you're muted if you were saying a date.
Yes, we'll text.
Okay.
Sky, just a quick question for you. Do you know if the other people from our team had registered, like Mr. Faisal Khan?
I'm not certain. I could ask Equin.
Yeah, we haven't been able to get in touch with him, so I'm trying to figure out whether we have a good contact for him or not.
So we're missing one person, is what you're saying. Yes.
We're missing two people.
Missing
Two people. But we know one person is traveling internationally. I don't know what time it is wherever Ilhan is, but
Yeah.
Let me ask. We have a chat going. I'll just see if Equin can pull up the full thing.
Okay. I haven't heard from response to any of my efforts to reach out. I don't know if you have heard anything.
No, I haven't. So I sent a couple of emails in the last 2 days as well. And then I had called, I had texted, I had tried, but I have not been able to get a hold of him for whatever reason. So that's why I was hoping he would be
Yeah,
here.
I don't,
I would catch him.
I don't know if he's also, I don't know if he's also traveling. It's just hard to know.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. And Kate, I see you're in the room as well.
Hi, friends.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So for this portion, we have some questions we need to answer for our agenda.
The one thing we have figured out is when we're meeting, which is Monday at 7
which is
o'clock.
awesome.
Yes.
Yes. It's funny, while you were doing that on WhatsApp, I was creating a calendaring thing. So I was so happy that you figured out how to do that in WhatsApp. I was like, yes. I use a calendaring, like Calendly. I can't say these names
for
anymore.
the survey? No,
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
WhatsApp surveys. It's just very easy.
That's great. Okay, so we have the meeting date, and if we were to loop backwards, you saw some of the questions that I posted in the WhatsApp of things that were after the first meeting that I thought were kind of critical to at least some thinking about how we approach offering up some of the suggestions related to legislative recommendations from the cohort and for the proposal. I was thinking, and after listening now to Damon's overview, I have a host of more questions, especially since this is a new program. And I am really, really interested in understanding what is in the training that will be mandatory and how it addresses what we already know. We don't need, because they've done, there's been analysis of this, I know, in over the years, but just how anti-Muslim specific targeting of perceived Muslim or students who are Muslim, like some of how those issues are kind of integrated into the training. Kate, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to look at that training. Are you familiar with the anti-bias training that staff and teachers are going to be getting?
Not at all.
Okay. All right.
So there's two things, right? One is the MCPS aspect of it, and then there's which we can offer a recommendation on because they're part of this team. But the second piece is recommendations as far as the county council is concerned, right? That's where we can kind of say, well, we recommend these policy changes because that's within his purview to make changes on. I
absolutely hear you and recognize that. I was struck by the answer that Damon gave. I wasn't expecting to hear that. The question of how can this commission be engaged with MCPS, and what I heard, and just based on the people who were participating, it appears, because he said it, was the welcoming of this committee and the cohort specifically to think about creating a stronger channel of accountability and communication with MCPS. I don't know that's partly why I'm curious what the training looks like, but I think that invitation is one I definitely want us to seize. Because I think that, as you know so well, the county council gives the money to the MCPS, but MCPS does not have to take county council policy recommendations. Right. MCPS makes it themselves. The lines between their authority and responsibility, as I understand it, is while it's collegial and informative, it's not mandatory, right? Like there's the boundaries there in terms of their roles. So starting with September 19th, and we're thinking, let's think backwards here, right? To get to a place where we are in a position to be able to answer those questions. I guess one question I have is, as a group, getting together and meeting and talking about the issues that we feel we need to prioritize to lift up as we think about the data that we've been presented. A question that exists for me is, do we want to, in the limited time we have, try to host or engage broader community voices to share with us insights and perspectives that come from the community. Because we have the community, as you know well, is large and it's really diverse. And we represent some of that diversity, but we don't represent all of it by any stretch. And I'm really cognizant of that. So I suspect every cohort is wrestling with this question, but I was curious if you or Imam, for those have thought about those things, that question of, are these meetings for us to wrestle with, do the research, try to gather, or should we also plan on one meeting in which we can invite the community? Because at the last meeting, I got the impression, Kate, that was also one of the objectives, was to make these meetings as public and as opportunities for deeper stakeholder engagement to answer the questions that we're presented with.
So the way I understand it, when we present our dates for, we're going to be meeting every Monday, those meetings are available to the community to attend as well, right?
Right.
They are recorded, they are available to the community. However, what you're talking about is a listening session, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
In one of the emails, Bertha had mentioned that we can host a listening session as well. So there's pros and cons to it, right? One is the timing. Ideally, I was not hoping to be up front in September 19. That just kind of came up way too close. If we had a little bit more time, we could make more use of the listening sessions. We're just coming up way too quickly after summer break.
Yeah, and I that's a question I actually wanted to kind of kick to our point person, I think, on the council, was the question of like the ordering. I just thinking about some of the challenges in getting that feedback given the timing. I just don't want it to be, I don't want us to miss the ability to get that kind of input. And if we are set with September 19th, then I think one of the things we need to prioritize is picking which meeting is going to be the listening session, which key questions we want answers to, and get the word out as soon as possible.
That is correct, and I think on the 3 points, if I can put that, number one is we are encouraged to solicit ideas. What is it to feel safe to live in Montgomery County from our from our constituents or from the masjid local, from our communities. So, and number two, in order to do that, because of the time constraint, we could do that probably at least on the high level. At least we should be arranging a meeting with other leaders, if not the communities themselves. And I think we can coordinate that. I can try to coordinate that kind of meeting with the masjid leaders around the area, the 7 or 8 or about, how many do we have? About 10 if we included all the masjids, including Montgomery County area. So the idea here, I believe, we do need to solicit inputs from the bottom up that we are going to present it, and I make a note of that particular one. I remember.
Great, yeah, I absolutely agree. I think we should target a couple because of the limited time. I think that listening to community leaders who are in organizations that are not necessarily affiliated directly, but people who are, and I'm thinking of like our members of the community who are also on the PTA, who also serve on other committees, who are engaged in community work, but are not necessarily on the board of the mosque or have like a religious leadership position, just in part because I think we don't have enough time, unfortunately, to do that kind of methodical targeting of engaging the different stakeholders. But I also am aware that there are a lot of people who are engaged, but they're all not necessarily working in specifically a house of worship. A lot of community engagement, a lot of community leaders that I think would be invested in this. So should we,
if we're looking at dates, sorry.
That's what I was going to suggest. Yeah.
So if we're looking at dates, I have the calendar in front of me, and we said, I just picked the Monday dates, right? So we're meeting Monday 7th, 14th, and 21st. For example, 21st Is that enough time to get the word out? Is it last week before school opens? And is that a bad Monday to pick for a listening session?
I think it's the only Monday we can pick.
Right? Because
I don't think we
it's
have
the Monday
another
for school
opportunity.
and then
Yeah.
it's Labor Day. So that kind of doesn't work for us. So if we meet on 7th and 14th, we get some of our points together, we get some of our brainstorming out of the way. And 21st, we listen to the community, share with them, hey, this is what we have so far. And we kind of get input from them. And I agree with you. We just open it up, kind of broadcast it out. Kate will also help us spread that word. And we can get it to the Muslim community. There's plenty of WhatsApp to get the word out to the Muslim community. And hopefully if it's online, people will show up.
Yeah, and I think it's for each of us to be engaging anybody we know who is in a position who might not be, again, like in a particular circle as wide as we can. Imam, for those, can I ask you a question? Can we also be sure to include, like, I'm thinking of the Ahmadi Muslim community, that is the Beitul Mosque that's on Good Hope Road, and others that may not...
through the American Muslim social senior society group, we are engaged with them.
Great. Great.
One thing I want to underline here, if anything about this anti-hate task force is really trying to engage the community and to create awareness. So yes, we are deadline driven, but we need to be mindful also what is the message that we need trying to share and collect from the communities. So that's something that we need to also keep in mind.
And then we are doing a presentation in September. However, our final report is due in November, right? So
that is correct.
If we learn along the way, then we can update that. At least that's my understanding.
I guess to your question, in the WhatsApp that we have, I posted those questions that I would think that was a starting point for me. I think it would be helpful for us to have. I imagine everybody has some questions, and there's other concerns that are out there. I think it would be helpful to use a mechanism for being able to share it. I think, in addition to engaging the other two members of the cohort that we have here, I don't want the absence of engagement. And I guess that's where I was getting at in some of my earlier messages on the WhatsApp, of just, if we can agree because I know we have limited time, perhaps we can have do a little thinking about, like, is there another mechanism in advance of our meeting times as a cohort, because they're public meetings, the preparation for those calls, the research that needs to be done. I was thinking about questions that I had about the reporting, and I really appreciated, although it was disturbing to hear the story of what happened recently at the Imam Center, I was curious if there is a repository, and Kate, maybe you know the answer, is there a repository in Montgomery County somewhere that has for the bias incidents and crimes that impact our particular community, are there in-depth kind of case following of what happened with the response of the police department or other entities, the interfaith engagement that you do facilitating? How is that monitored and tracked? Like, I don't have clarity about that. I understand how the state's attorney and the police department engage, determine if there's a threshold. But what's unclear in my mind is, like a social worker, is there a case following and looking at what were the byproducts? If it didn't meet, for example, the threshold of a criminal investigation.
So
Kate, before you answer that, I share with them with the incident that we had at the Imam Center.
Okay. So first and foremost, most incidents in the Muslim community aren't reported, right? Like, no police contact. The Jewish community is best at reporting. They have the strongest relationships with the FBI. Muslim community has not graded it. And sometimes locally, there will be an organization that tracks hate crimes, and people are more comfortable reporting to them, like CARE in different regions will do that. For tracking hate crimes, what will happen is the police will come up with a report every month of the incidents that were reported, just reported, and then they will give no follow-up. So there's a number of incidents that are happening against houses of worship in this past month. I won't get follow-up. I will tell them, can you give them my contact information so I can talk with them? So, you know, I can make sure they have the right resources in place. I would say like 1% of the time I will hear from them. And there will be no, like, they will track it internally, I'm sure, to some degree, but they will not share the findings. And the Committee Against Hate Violence, that's probably the most helpful part of those meetings, as they go through the pending hate crimes that they're looking into. And they will they'll let you know the district it happened in, they'll let you know like the basics, but that's it. They won't give you any sort of contact information.
Okay.
We have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I see that. Thank you. That's really helpful. Well, that's definitely a topic of, I mean, that's one way to identify like a problem area. Other than, what are the organizations? The last question I have is, what are the other organizations? I understand CARE has a hotline. Are there any other local organizations that are in Montgomery County that people would call? Muslim organizations that people would call. Like, I know MPAC doesn't have an office here. I mean, our proximity to Washington, D.C. is part of, I think, the quasi challenge. My having worked in other cities, like, I am aware there's almost like a stronger infrastructure because there isn't the presence of so many national groups.
That's those national groups, but they're not very active in Montgomery County, right? So
that's what I'm saying. That's
you don't have a base.
Exactly.
People are not gonna raise an issue to you, right? Because you don't.
So
we're saying the same thing. That's what I'm saying.
We don't have it yet up to now, but it is something that we need to think about. And I for one, always wanted to have. I was in the Masjid Council before. They call it CMO, coordinating Masjid organization. I mean, Muslim organizations, coordinating council of Muslim organization, I should say. So then we changed it, becoming CMO, Council of Muslim Organizations, which is, covering all the way down to Richmond and all around 75 miles radius from Washington, D.C. So anyway,
does that exist? I'm sorry. Does that still exist?
No, it's in dormant mode.
Oh, okay.
And what we need now, we need to be a little bit more localized to Montgomery County area, at least, and be a model about it. And I think I could fairly say that I have enough, relationship with every masjid around here, with the Shia masjid, with the masjid that you described in the Ahmadiyya masjid, and all of that. So we can keep this in the back of our mind, that because for the effectiveness of these Muslim communities in the future, there are so many things that's equal. One masjid and the other, the same problem. And I noticed that, and I shared that with several imams, including Imam Faisal Khan, by the way. When he returns, he would know, because I know him very well as well.
Can I say something quickly? I would encourage us to look into, just to make sure first before, because I know in the Bay Area, CARE would have a mechanism where people could report incidents of hate that wouldn't be sent to the FBI. I don't think the local branch does that here. Maybe they'd be interested, and maybe Muslim Advocates is tracking to some degree.
I was wondering, because I am on the advisory board of Muslim Advocates, and I was wondering, I actually was just going to send a note out, because there was for a while, there were some mechanisms in place to track. I am mindful that we're going to close in 66 seconds. There's one more item we need to address, which is we need to select a cohort leader to be presenting for our group. Are we comfortable making that decision with only 3 of us here?
At least we can make the suggestions here and then bring it up to the wider to be pragmatics about that. I think,
Okay.
One of you should be thinking.
So you've just voluntold one of us to, okay. All right, to voluntelling.
Being in the middle, yeah, I had.
Yeah, I sense that immediately. I mean, I am, in terms of the responsibilities of the cohort leader, my understanding is it is to gather, organize logistics, like synthesize what we're doing and make those presentations. I'm happy to do that, but based on this timetable, we'll have to move aggressively. I don't know, Adia, how you feel, if you've got the time for that.
Looks like everybody is back. So if we could take just a couple of minutes for each cohort to share with us who their chairs are, who their co-chairs are, when your next date is, your next meeting date is, that would be really helpful.
Hi, I'll go first. I represent the African American cohort, and I think that by de facto, I'm one of the chairs. I won't claim that I'll be the only chair. I'd like to see if anyone online has the interest in joining me. Hearing nothing, I guess I'll accept that honor. All right, and our next meeting.
Lisa?
Yes.
Lisa, this is Tiffany.
Okay.
I thought we were going to continue our discussion later. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for that question.
Okay, so at this point, we are not prepared to answer the first question. The second question of when we'll be having a meeting will be August the 10th at 7 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
I can jump in.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'm Meredith Weisel. I'm with ADL, the Anti-Defamation League. So in the Jewish cohort, I somehow either voluntold or volunteered. I'll be the chair for our cohort. The four of us know each other very well, so we work together. It's really kind of honestly a multi-chair, if you really want to call it that, but I'll be doing the report out. Two of our people are not here tonight, so we're potentially meeting August 9th or 10th. We have to touch base with everybody else to figure out which date is better for them, and then an exact time related to that. So we will get back to everybody on that. Was that it? Was that all you needed, or did you need anything else?
That's good. Thank you, Meredith.
Okay.
Alex, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll go. Hey, everyone. My name is Alex Vasquez. Well, I think I'm with Meredith. I don't know if I was voluntold or volunteered, but it's definitely an honor. So I will be leading the Latino cohort. We did not decide on a co-chair. We actually kind of ran out of time because, we were just kind of trying to get to know each other. It was our first time ever being together in the same room. So I also cannot tell you when we're going to have our first meeting, as two of our members are not here, but you will definitely hear from us soon.
I'll go next. I'm Ariani Ong. I'll be the chair for the Asian American Task Force. We did have a meeting prior to this, as you heard the readout, and we will resume around September 5th, but that exact date and time TBD.
Thank you.
Awesome. I'm Philip Alexander Downey. I am the co-chair for the LGBTQIA plus cohort, along with Reverend Ali Casey Bell. We will be meeting next on Wednesday or Thursday at 4:00 p.m. We had a few of our cohort members that were not here, but we know there is a request for daytime meetings, and so we're going to discuss with them and then send out a link for our next meeting.
Okay, who are we missing?
We're the Muslim cohort, sorry. We are like others. We were in the midst of discussing leadership. We'll be able to answer that question after our next meeting. We also were without two members in the cohort, but we do have time. So our first meeting will be on August 7th at 7 p.m. That's a Monday. And we are finalizing the remainder, but that is the next meeting.
I'm sorry, I may have missed it. Are you the chair?
No, we are still discerning the leadership. We're still figuring that out.
Okay.
I think that's everyone.
Mhm.
We just wanted to thank everyone for being here tonight. We appreciate your time. We'll be following up with an email, including all the information that was shared towards the end so that everyone can have this date available. And then we'll also be sharing other resources in terms of what the policy recommendations, what the ask that's included in the resolution is. So we'll certainly have, we'll be sharing a lot more, sending your way via email. I think, Selena and I are always available to help. We will be also reaching out to those who have already set their times and dates for their meetings, because we will help you with the different links, or if you're meeting in person, finding a space for your meeting. So we'll be in contact.
Thank you, everyone, and good night.